Hello, this is David Leibowitz with Philosophy Video Game Philosophy, and I'm excited to have on a good friend of mine, Shishibro Kenji, who is
Yeah,
introduce yourself.
yeah. So, hey everybody, my name is Chishimaru Kenji or Shishibro. That's just the name of my character avatar and artist name. I am an artist, writer, gamer, and enthusiast about Japanese folklore.
Yes. So he's not a Genshin player. So even though I usually do this on people who know games very less so, like my Chinese friend and my philosophical friend and my teacher, I feel like it's still interesting to do this with someone who has played games but just not Genshin, because I think that it still functions the same way. Um, so we're gonna do some Oni. We're gonna do some at least Oni lore. We're gonna talk about Itto, and if we have time, we'll get to others. Probably if we have time, we'll get to Yamiko. But yeah, could you join the activity?
Sure. Um, sorry, seems I'm okay. It's not
Yeah.
letting me. It's not letting me. Oh, I have to. It's asking me if I want to start Oh, join activity.
And we're
Sorry,
on.
I'm relatively new to these
Yeah,
functions, but
it's all good. It's
yeah,
all good. Just means we can do this from have this be the main thing. All right, are you ready to watch?
yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do this.
That's what I thought too.
Traveler,
Right?
we were going the right way, weren't we?
How strange.
There's a legend in Inazuma about a merchant who was tricked by a Bakedanuki one evening and kept circling around the same place the whole night. Even by dawn, they still hadn't found a way out.
Yeah, Paimon's heard that one before too.
So we're all familiar with the story then? Good, because I'm pretty sure that's what's happening to us right now. But fear not, I happen to have a certain sidekick who can exercise yokai and spirits and whatnot. Let me summon him real quick.
Unbelievable. An Oni who's friends with an exorcist? Huh. What an open-minded
I
guy.
mean,
For the boss,
Yeah.
ignorance is a virtue.
oh, sorry, I was just thinking about like that whole Oni being friends with an exorcist thing.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's not that surprising given the multifaceted nature of Oni in Japanese folklore. Like, yes, traditionally they are depicted as evil spirits and causers and bringers of destruction. However, they are also seen as protective spirits in some cases.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll show you what the actual Exorcist is because I believe it fits the Oni folklore.
Okay.
You're up, Ushi! Go get that spirit!
Okay, so an ox.
Yes.
Interesting. Interesting selection.
Is there anything accuracy about this, or
Um, well, the only things that really come to mind are the fact that some Oni are depicted as being ox-headed or horse-headed, and that specifically refers to Gozu and Meizu, who are the servants of Enmadayo.
mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of accuracy to exorcisms, I can't really say.
Yeah.
I
Let's
feel
see if
like
there's
this is
anything.
more, huh?
Yeah. No, you go. I think the
Oh,
bigger
I do
thing is just
notice.
yeah. What do you notice?
I noticed that they have the Onigawara on their backs. Onigawara are Oni roof tiles. They're placed on
Mm-hmm.
certain temples in order to ward off evil spirits.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I was referring to earlier with some Oni being characterized as protective spirits.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
This is Ushi, an auxiliary member of the Arataki gang.
What about our Ito's very over the top personality? Is that fitting for Oni?
Yeah, I would say so. Like with their with their whole with their whole demeanor being based around like being very loud, disruptive, and at times chaotic. I think it's fitting for an Oni to have this an Oni inspired character to have this personality.
All right, let's see if there's anything else. But and then this is after. This is a quest that takes place after the main quest I'm going to show you. I just felt like getting this out of the way first.
Okay.
Oh, Ushi says hello, everyone. You can just call him Ushi or Beefcake. Yeah, he's got a keen sense of direction, so
And
I'll
he
let him lead
can't.
the way.
And Ushi can't find anything. So to explain what's actually happening in this quest is they're in like some freaking reality bending cave, but we don't need to go there. And that reality bending cave is in the Chinese area. So let's go to the actual Oni lore.
A long, long time ago, in a village lost to time, there lived a crimson Oni and a blue Oni. They were the best of friends. The crimson Oni looked fierce, but was gentle like the humans. The blue Oni looked human, but was reclusive, like an Oni. The crimson Oni wished to befriend the humans, but they were scared and threw beans at him whenever he came near. So the blue Oni said to the crimson Oni,
Akka, I'll cause trouble in the village. You come and stop me. Then the humans will accept you.
As planned, the crimson Oni chased the blue Oni away. The crimson Oni's deeds spread throughout the land, and people finally accepted him. But when the crimson Oni went to tell the blue Oni the good news, he was gone and left only a letter behind.
I went traveling. Don't come find me or they'll treat you as a naughty little Oni. But don't worry about me. No matter where I go, we'll always be friends.
So is there any real tale that this is based off of?
Yes, this is basically the story of the Red Oni who cried, where a Red Oni wanted to befriend human villagers, but wasn't able to because, he's an Oni. So then his blue Oni companion was like, I'll go ahead and cause trouble in the village, and you try and stop me, and they'll accept you. So everything goes according to plan, and the Red Oni becomes becomes accepted by the village. However, when he goes back to find his blue friend, he finds that he left.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes him to cry, either because he lost his best friend or because he's grateful that the blue Oni sacrificed everything to give him a chance to live within the community. It's a very complicated story.
Are there any other? As we talk, let me go and wait. How do I get back? Okay, the playlist to get to where Itto explains it himself. So how have there been other adaptations of the story in media?
I'd imagine so. This is the type of story that is like told as a children's folk tale. So, I wouldn't be surprised if there were like small animated shorts from like several decades ago, or even and I believe that this may actually be an inspiration for the quote unquote Red Oni, Blue Oni trope, where one character is more extroverted and the other one is introverted.
Not worth it if someone gets hurt.
So why in the world would you say that you were the culprit?
Maybe you don't know because you're Outlanders, but it all started a long, long time ago with the story of the Crimson Oni and the Blue Oni.
Hold on a second. If you're talking about that fairy tale, we've heard that one already.
Oh, so you already know. Well, that makes things a whole lot easier.
So, is the story from the fairy tale really true?
Everything about the fate of the Oni is true. The Blue Oni chose exile, and the Crimson Oni stayed behind. But the other details aren't historically accurate. Fairy tales are nice stories, but there's something they leave out. It's a little thing called the cold, hard truth. The Inazuma of long ago was a dangerous place. If you wanted the Raiden Shogun's protection, you had to have a good relationship with the humans. The Oni are a proud kind, so it wasn't easy for them to ask others for acceptance. Over time, the Oni eventually split into two factions. The Crimson Oni were friendly with the humans, but the Blue Oni, they were more stubborn and insisted on keeping to their own.
Paimon thought you were two different species. So really, you're all one family?
Yep, that's right. There's no real difference between us. We just paint our horns different colors to show which side we belong to.
Accurate?
I think it's an interesting adaptation of the idea of the Red Oni and Blue Oni. But yeah, I think you can see the story of the Red Oni who cried as an allegory for assimilating into a different society. At least from my understanding, the Oni have historically been used as in propaganda as enemies of the Japanese Imperial Court. And that's even been as recent as World War II, with the depiction of American soldiers as the Oni, and of course America as Onigashima. So, at least in this context, it makes me think of the people, especially like cultural and ethnic groups of the Heian period, who were still rebelling against the Yamato court.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
A bit, and I do just want to preface this by stating that a lot of what I'm saying is educated, informed, but I am not an expert on all things Japanese folklore and history. I do have some recommendations for where you should look if you want to study more and get a greater understanding of the Oni and their place in Japanese folklore as well as history. But I'll do that at the end of this video. So one thing that comes to mind, at least when I see Arataki Itto in his position as the leader of this gang of Oni within the world of Genshin Impact, is the story of Shuten-dōji, or the Little Drunkard. He is generally considered to be one of the three wicked ones, the three most wicked yokai of Japan. And the other two are actually a Tengu and a Kitsune, specifically Sutoku Tenno, a disgraced member of the Imperial family who became a Tengu, or in some cases an Onryo, after his death. And Tamamo no Mae, the nine-tailed Kitsune who brought the Imperial Court to ruin by poisoning the Emperor and, seducing.
I think I'm familiar with that. That's the Daji parallel in China, right? From China?
Tamamo has been conflated with Lady Daji of China as well as Lady Kaio of India. So yes.
Okay.
But going back to Shuten, so his story has been adapted multiple times since the, I want to say, 11th or 12th century. It's believed that the earliest versions of the myth that would then go on to inspire the Oeyama version that most people know was based off of oral traditions. Oral folk tales passed down from that time. There's another version that is based off of more recent events, with the murder of a bandit in a separate mountain range that's close to Kyoto. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to refer to the Oeyama version of the story, as that's the one that I'm most familiar with. So, Shuten-dōji was a mysterious individual who led a band of thieves and marauders who terrorized the city of Kyoto by kidnapping the daughters of noble families. And so the emperor of the time ordered Minamoto no Raiko, aka Minamoto no Yorimitsu, and his men to go hunt down Shuten and kill him and his band of men. With the aid of the gods, who provided them with a blessed sake, they were able to disguise themselves as Yamabushi, or mountain priests who practice Shugendo, and infiltrate Shuten's lair. Anyway, to the surprise of anybody who just thinks Oni are like these violent, mindless killing machines, on the contrary, Shuten made an excellent host, even though most of his food and drink was made of human flesh, presumably. So he welcomed Yorimitsu and his men into the banquet hall and gave them food and drink of dubious origin. And when I say dubious origin, I mean human flesh. And there's actually a lot of like old illustrations that show this banquet where it's clear that the food and drink is made from the bodies of humans. But anyway, in some versions of the story, Shuten-doji tells the story of his origins, and some storytellers have even gone so far as to say that he's the son of another famous monster from Japanese folklore, Yamato no Orochi, aka the eight-headed serpent who was killed by the god Susanoo.
Yes.
And the reason why this connection has been made is because, like Shuten himself, Orochi had a severe drinking problem. I mean, it was the sake that led to his downfall.
Which is what was used to slay Orochi.
The sake was used to inebriate Orochi because he was supposed to have a sacrificial offering of a human. In this case, Susanoo's future wife, Kushinada Hime. However, when he drank the sake, he became incredibly inebriated, and that gave Susanoo an opening to slay the beast.
Which is also what is used as an inspiration for the Okami boss fight, which we will talk Okami when we do.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll talk it. This is what we both love. But we'll get to it when we get to it. But back to this. Yes,
yeah,
so
back to Shuten. Back to Shuten, when he was offered the sake, he drank it, and in some versions of the story, so did his men, and they became like instantly plastered. And so Shuten returned to his nightly quarters in order to sleep it off. In some versions of the story, Shuten did take the form of a human during the banquet, but after he fell asleep, he reverted to his true form, his quote-unquote true form, a 50-foot tall red ogre with different colored limbs.
Oh,
so like
I do need to show his ult. He doesn't turn into it, but in the background there is a big red ogre. So
yeah.
We can briefly bring up the character demo that shows that. Yeah, so how does Shuten then relate back to Itto?
Right now, the thing that really strikes me is Itto's position as the leader of his gang, as well as his what's the word? Gregarious?
Gregarious, yeah.
Yeah. His gregarious nature when he's interacting with other members of the party.
I see.
As Shuten, while he was the leader of this vicious gang of thieves and berserkers and murderers who took the young noblewomen of Kyoto back to their den to presumably have their way with them and eat them. There is a certain level of sympathy you can afford to Shuten because he genuinely tried to be a good host, and then his hospitality was taken advantage of by these men of the Imperial Court.
You know what this kind of feels like an inversion of? A character I feel like that is ogre-like as well. In the Odysseus myth, the Cyclops, who are sinners because they're seen as inhospitable, and that's why they deserve what they deserve. But and they're you're familiar with that story, of course. I mean, since you're an Egyptophile, I feel like you put some time into Greek as well. So
naturally,
yeah. So I guess is there sort of a parallel, even though it's a antithesis, sort of? They both get taken advantage of, though.
I don't know if I would say that there is a parallel because I mean these are ideas naturally overlap across cultures just because people think that a folktale would sound cooler or be more significant if it had this or that.
Yeah.
If I had to name anything from Greek mythology that may be a parallel, it may be like the feast of human flesh at the banquet of Lycaon. That King
Yeah.
Lycaon of Arcadion had held
Yes.
for Zeus, and he managed to trick the god into eating human flesh as a test of his, omniscience, and as a result, he got turned into a wolf,
Wolf.
or
The first ever wolf, according to many, I guess.
first ever. I would say it's more like first ever werewolf.
That's what I meant. First ever werewolf. Yes. Yes.
But
That's the
again,
first.
that's not. But again, I don't really attribute that to there being like parallels, as more like I would say you would see stronger parallels to a Japanese folktale in adjacent countries like Chinese folklore. I mean,
No, no. Yeah, of
themselves
course.
are syncretic. Oni themselves, at least the version of Oni that we know today as like the big ogre, big horn-fanged ogre, that's a syncretized image of evil spirits from China and India,
Yes.
specifically the Buddhist Rakshasa and
Yes.
Yaksha.
Yakshi, which Genshin does have yakshas in China, in the Chinese region, and
Hmm.
I believe they do have horns.
After choosing exile, the number of blue Oni began to dwindle, until eventually, they disappeared altogether. To mistreat humans, but were also...
So basically, he's saying that they made a deal.
not to stand for mistreatment against themselves. Second, the Crimson Oni were to integrate with human society, but not by trying to please the humans. The Oni were to embrace their own honest characters, their surging tempers, and their awesome strength to win respect from the humans. In other words, they were to carry on the Oni bloodline while also protecting our Oni pride.
Pride is a very big theme of this quest. How much does that relate to the Oni folklore?
I don't know. I don't think it relates to the Oni folklore specifically because, like, it's not like the Oni aren't too proud to beg for their lives if they're forced into a situation where they have to. However, I would say that there are many instances where Oni are seen like partaking in human activities such as playing music and holding their own festivals. So I would say that this is a commentary on the Oni's on the mythological Oni similarity to humans in their capacity to enjoy things, in their capacity to be prideful, in their capacity to be either good or evil, or somewhere between.
Okay.
Like many yokai,
After choosing exile,
the Oni are kind of nebulous or multifaceted in the way that they act, as they can be as they can either be your worst nightmare or they can actually make good allies.
Which in this case, they're good allies.
Yeah.
the number of blue Oni began to dwindle, until eventually, they disappeared altogether. Since I first heard the story of the blue and crimson Oni as a kid, I've heard it countless times in my life. Not once did I ever imagine that the blue Oni clan had actually survived.
So you're saying the real culprit was a descendant of the blue Oni?
That's right. Most people don't pay attention to the color of an Oni's horns. They probably don't even know that blue Oni exist. But nothing gets by the Arataki gang. At the scene of the crime, they saw an Oni with different color horns than mine. Still, it would be strange if the culprit really was a descendant of the blue Oni. I can't bring myself to accept it.
Does this, anything about that? Is the actual, like, going on of Red and Blue Oni, like, carry on from the tale? Or is this just, or is there any parallels to this? Basically, the whole spiel is that the Blue Oni swore to pretend to be the villains, but they didn't actually do anything wrong to humans. They just left and made a sacrifice. So the story of this is that this Oni that we're going to meet, if we want to go forward, Takuya, does something bad because he's just fed up with all of this. But yeah.
The Oni, the Red Oni who cried ends with the Oni crying. So I wouldn't call this a continuation of that story. However, I think it's more speculative fiction than anything. It does make this idea of there being truth to the folktale, however, does make me think about the Oni's origins, at least in the socio-political context of medieval Japan. Um, Again, there were multiple indigenous groups that were against the Yamato courts, and to name a few, there were the Emishi, the Kumaso, the Tsuchigumo, and what was it? I know there were a few others there. The Hayato. Some of these might sound familiar, particularly the Tsuchigumo one.
Well, obviously, because yeah,
Yeah, but what happened to these groups is largely like what exactly happened to these groups is largely unknown. And when I say unknown, I mean it's more like they either died out due to due to losing conflicts against the Yamato court, or assimilated into Yamato society because of those
what
losses.
can you give a date to this?
A date?
Yes. When was the Yamato court?
A date to the Yamato court?
Yes.
So when they rose to power, and when they, okay, is that what you're looking for?
That's what I'm looking for. I mean, the funny thing about this is that actually, Inazuma takes place in a very interesting time. Like they do talk about how this has been a long time since this story has happened.
Right.
The actual date of Inazuma takes place, and actually goes and takes an interest in the historical thing happens. It's the Bakumatsu era is when
So
Inazuma takes place. So right before Meiji, but there's a whole conflict against the god who wants to preserve Japan and not make it progress. But then, and it's the interesting thing actually is that some of the yokai that originally do um, work for the shogun, they work for the god. They the kitsune and the tengu, but the kitsune actually has actually disliked what's been happening, so she helps you, even though she's her to sort of bring her friend back from her ruts basically. And then the Tengu you convince her that's what she's been doing is wrong. But then there's also a dog person and a mermaid, Japanese mermaid like thing that have been working against them all the time from the start. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But the fact that even like the Tengu has basically been working as part of like the courts, but I guess like the administration is interesting.
yeah. So the exact time period in which the Yamato court came to power is still debated. However, it's conventionally assigned to have taken place somewhere between the 4th and 7th century.
Okay, so way before the Bakumatsu era. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still think it's important to bring up the the ancient history to contextualize what we see here in modern media. Because while yes, the Meiji era and pre-Meiji era are far more fresh in our minds,
I don't know
I
how many
think
people
it's
have that. I know there's an anime. There's a few Bakumatsu era animes, but I feel like the Bakumatsu period is not touched on that much, or at
mm,
least in. Do you feel that's the case, or do you feel like you see Bakumatsu stuff everywhere?
honestly, this is the first time. This is either the first or second time I've heard of the Bakumatsu era. So you're probably right about that.
It, yeah, yeah. No, I think Meiji gets a lot more attention probably
Yeah.
than Meiji, and then much earlier get a lot more attention. Um, but yeah, let's So no, I think the politics, if I should another time, the politics that happens. I mean, basically, there's a whole revolution against the god, and it's successful. She does not die. She becomes our bestie. She basically deals with her demons and accepts that.
So is this god supposed to be a stand-in for the Imperial Court, or
the god rules? Yes, the god does in fact rule the Inazuma. Yes.
okay? So
This quest happens after the events of that uprising, after the main story.
okay,
Yeah.
so I think I understand what's going on now with that context. Again, I don't play Genshin Impact, so I wouldn't have known this prior, but still, this is interesting.
And there's I don't know if we'll have time to get to the god. I feel like since the theme is yokai, we'll see if we have time for the kitsune. There's only a little bit that needs to be shown of that, but let's finish this up.
Yeah.
Exactly. They would give up their life before abandoning their pride. I've always respected the Blue Oni for the sacrifice they made. And I know the aspirations my ancestors had for the future of all Oni. Our pride does not allow for any wrongdoing. You don't steal from other people. You don't harm other people, period. My guess is that the Blue Oni was tricked or forced into it somehow. But I don't have any evidence.
So, anything about that?
I feel like this is the story's way of trying to sanitize the Oni. The Oni by making it so that way whatever harm they might have caused to people was caused by an outside force.
I don't think that doesn't actually. I believe the guy actually does it for real though. But
yeah.
No, he does do it for real. Yeah.
It's not outside the realm of possibility for Oni to be tricked, though. The way that they're tricked is usually like to keep them from doing harm, not tricking them into causing harm.
Yeah.
Of our names, mine's Takuya, by the way, but you don't even care, do you? Because those who get sacrificed should be forgotten, right?
No, you're wrong. I never knew the Blue Oni had survived to this day, and the moment I found out, I was determined that I would find you. Since you remember the pact between our two factions, I assume you also remember the pride we share as Oni. So my question is, how could a proud Oni like yourself go and abuse the weak and plunder the innocent? Why break the oath that our kind swore all those years ago? Huh? What's so funny?
Who are you to talk about pride and oaths with me? The Blue Oni gave up everything, just so the Crimson Oni could live peacefully in human society. But let me ask you, Arataki Itto, what exactly do you contribute to human society? You're a blundering fool who can't hold down a real job, a laughingstock of the town, and worse still, you let them get your vision during the Vision Hunt decree. Protecting the Oni pride? Ha! You wouldn't know how if you tried. You're a disgrace to the...
Oh, I was just thinking, he kind of has a point.
He does. No, he very much does have a point.
Like, Arataki Iko does not strike me as somebody who is, like, the most competent person.
No, he's just really strong and nice. That's about it.
Which, I mean, those are nice qualities in a vacuum, but maybe as a leader of a gang and somebody who is supposed to be a representative of the Oni, I mean,
yeah,
that could come with some issues.
The Oni kind.
Hey, come on. None of that stuff's a big deal. I mean, you're really hanging me out to dry here, man.
Since when do you care what other people think? You just do whatever you want. It's not like anyone can stop you. But do you have any idea of the kind of life my kin and I have lived while you've been hanging around in human society? We were cut off from the rest of the world. We severed all contact with it. And since then, we've had no place to live, no stable source of food, no clothing, no medicine, nothing. Besides the oath we swore to uphold in our so-called Oni pride, we had nothing.
So, that's why you joined a band of thieves?
That's right. Why should I accept that life? Is holding fast to a worthless oath supposed to help me provide for my family and friends? I've abandoned our Oni pride. It's meaningless. I want to live.
So what do you think about that?
Whew. Damn. Okay, so
Mostly
as somebody
hitting harder now that I'm watching this again than when I watched it the first time.
as somebody who already as somebody who likes writing stories and already sees like the Oni as, you know, potentially being an allegory for marginalized communities, potentially
This hits.
like
This hits, right?
yeah, because it's just like, historically speaking, the Oni, if they were a people, they are repeatedly getting kicked in the balls
Yeah.
by folklore because, you know, they're evil and dumb.
This guy
So
comes off as more competent than Itto. Yeah, probably. But anything else? See if there's anything else
that's
in this.
that's about
I've
it.
given everything that I've stolen from humans to my community. What I've taken will at least keep them from starving and ease their pain. That's what matters most to me.
Yeah, and besides, the Blue Oni sacrificed themselves so that Oni could be accepted as part of
Red
human
Oni could.
Yeah, Paimon, you clearly weren't listening.
society. If people see Oni causing trouble again, then that'll defeat the whole purpose of the sacrifice you made.
This is coming off as a little bit. Do you think this feels a little bit more? Feels like, I know it's starting to make sense that Japanese games have started to gone very individualist for some reason, even though the society is so collectivist. But it's still weird to see when a Chinese game, because again, this is from China, does this go. Doesn't feel completely. Actually, I don't know. This is actually no. The guy.
It feels reductive. It feels reductive. Like,
In
it
what way?
feels reductive if you ask me. Yeah. Like, I get what they're trying to say. Like, if you wreck it for the people that you sacrificed so much for, then that defeats the whole purpose. But look, that why do you think he is lashing out? There is a clear problem. There's a clear problem with the systemic treatment of Oni. Not just Blue Oni. This is also a Crimson Oni problem too.
Yeah, I believe this does end with. I guess end with the Blue Oni sort of getting accepted, though it also ends with both of them going to jail. But Itto just finds a way to constantly go to jail and get out. So
Jesus Christ.
I mean, no, I think he serves. I don't think he escapes. I think he serves a sentence. Gets out.
You make a good point. But Arataki Itto's the one who needs to get
I do
that
want to
into
say
his
though,
thick skull.
for some reason, the English localization is very interesting in that I don't see often that they put the last names first. Like for some reason, this Chinese game is going out of the way to do that. I mean, they did it for the Chinese characters too, I believe, but I think it's a lot more characters with full names from the Japanese, from Inazuma, than from China, than from Liwa. So it's interesting. Also, some people try to actually pronounce the Japanese a little bit better. Like they do. Like it's the only English dub where I've heard Makoto, not Makoto. I mean, it's a very easy thing to do, but people just don't seem to do it right. So,
I mean,
the Blue Oni are the bad guys, so we're expected to do.
I mean, this is me going off on a
bad
tangent,
things.
but like, You
Our
know,
actions won't tarnish
at
the
least when it comes to localizing names. I try to pronounce it the way that it sounds in Japanese, but I also understand that, like, in some cases, you do just need to work with how English speakers would pronounce a name phonetically. Or yeah.
The Makoto is a lowbrow where you could say Makoto. I don't
Yeah.
know, but and they don't say they can say Makoto, like they add in the like they do in this, or at least the god Makoto is the dead sister of the god that basically
Yeah.
put her into this into her rut.
of the Crimson Oni. Unless, of course, this bonehead decides it'd be a great idea to take all the blame for himself.
Which is what
destroying
happens. The whole conflict is not just that he's done this. It's that Arataki Itto has put the blame, confessed himself to try to make it to try to clear up for the Blue Oni. Is that getting even worse now, or is that good?
What do you think?
It's not good.
I'm just like, that is the most boneheaded thing you can do. There are better ways to do this.
So, okay, well, he is voiced by Max Middleman in English, so it's one of the there are smart characters Max Middleman has played, like in Your Lie in April, but yeah, his type that usually plays.
the trust between humans and the Crimson Oni in the process. He's the one that wasted the sacrifice we made.
Huh? Well, I only had to do that because of you. I couldn't just stand back and let the Tenryou Commission drag you away.
You should get your priorities straight. The Blue Oni are history, all right? Forget about us. The Crimson Oni are the ones who must live on.
Don't sacrifice yourself like that. Come on, you were committing thievery just to feed your family. There is a better way to do this. So it's, while he's a bonehead, while Itto's a bonehead, Takuya, you're not perfect either. The decision making here is just ugh.
Okay. Let's see they just see. So he saves him. He saves him.
Huh? I'm not here to
he's about
reason
to
with
kill
you.
himself.
Go! It wouldn't bring trouble to the Crimson Oni. If I came to you for help, wouldn't that just undo everything the Blue Oni have done?
Not to me. I've always respected the Blue Oni for their sacrifice. Nothing they did was in vain. It's only because of them that we have survived to see today, and built a world where Oni and humans can live side by side. Honestly, everything that I have now, I owe to the Blue Oni. And let me tell you, the Inazuma of today wouldn't see you as a villain just because of the color of your horns.
You say all that, but in spite of everything, you're barely getting by.
That's just how I roll, man. You remember the pact, don't you?
He is taking systemic corruption in stride.
We're not supposed to suck up to the humans. We're supposed to
I think
earn their
Genshin has done
respect.
an anti-racist story better than this. Now that I feel like about it. It started off really good, and then I realized it's kind of falling to shit.
Yeah, you're not supposed to suck up to the humans, but at the same time, like, earn their respect. That can be that's so as a black man, look, respect is fine and dandy, but what you actually need, my friend, is justice. And sometimes you actually have to demand attention from the people who are exploiting you. Just like, not even just like, oh, please, won't you respect us? No, it's, hey, listen to us, or else this whole thing you got going is going to go up in flames. At least that's my advice.
Yeah, I think the best anti-racist story is in the newest region with the mellow scenes. That because it's completely like, yeah, racism goes away. I mean, they originally were discriminated against. Uh, a Melusine ended up killing herself based off of all the discrimination, and but then later on a similar situation happens, and the Melusines are rooted forward against the racists. So, but I guess it's a little easier with when this is all around chibi mermaids, who were somehow hated for some reason. Because why? I guess just 'cause they're different.
Every member of the Arataki gangs had a tough time trying to fit in. Take Akira, for example. He snores like you wouldn't believe. Or Genta, he's got a serious temper problem. And Mamoru, well, he's colorblind. Even Granny Oni, she got that name for taking me in as a kid. We're all rejects and outcasts in some way, but we don't care. You want to talk about pride? Well, in our gang, we're proud to welcome anyone who's been through adversity with open arms.
But
Don't worry. The Arataki gang's already a bunch of misfits. You really think you could cramp our style?
We've dealt with the Kairagi and the people they took captive. I
And they go to
assume the
jail.
two of you are finished.
Hooray!
You're kind of just fed up with them. You're kind of just fed up with them now. It's like, good.
I guess I appreciate the platitudes being spewed by Itto here. But like, did anything get resolved? Like, truly resolved?
No, Itto still finds himself up in jail after this a few times.
Awesome.
Yeah. I should probably show that, wait, there's this.
In a village lost to time, there lived a crimson
Wait, didn't we
Oni
watch this
and
one
a blue
before?
Oni.
No,
They were the best of friends.
This is a different cutscene.
Ah. Okay.
The Crimson Oni wanted to be friends with the humans, so the Blue Oni played the role of the naughty kid. And then he left. After a long time, the Crimson Oni was living happily with the humans, but in his heart, he wanted to bring the Blue Oni back home. The Crimson Oni didn't know where to find the Blue Oni. His search took him up the highest mountains and across the widest rivers. He found many traces of the Blue Oni, but the more he found, the clearer it became. The Blue Oni was hiding on purpose. So just as the Blue Oni had once done, the Crimson Oni left him a letter.
Dear Owl, I've made lots of human friends now, and I want to have a big party for everyone. I want all my friends to be there. That means you too, Owl. If you don't want to meet me, you can just watch from a distance.
The Blue Oni snuck back to the village and hid in the shadows. He saw the great feast and roaring fire and longed to join in. But though his stomach rumbled, the Blue Oni remembered the oath of old and kept his distance. Suddenly, he jumped. The Crimson Oni was right behind him.
Hey, you're finally back. Come on, I'll introduce you. It's time everyone met my best friend.
So?
I appreciate the nice sentiment and the spin, and well, the happy ending, or well, quote unquote happy ending, to that little folk tale. Overall, this was an interesting experience. Seeing how Genshin Impact adapts Japanese folklore.
Especially since it's Chinese. It's Chinese. Not to say the Japanese don't adapt Chinese folklore too. You see that
Yeah,
you see that in Shin Megami Tensei and Persona with all the Chinese personas. And
yeah, and more recently I've seen it, in another gacha game. From
Sword
there.
Chronicles Awaken.
No, it's called Hosomo.
Okay. I mean, obviously, there's also Apothecary Diaries, which is a very, but that's not. It's not really folklore. It's just the setting. Apothecary
Ah,
Diaries and Raven of the those animes. But let me take out the demo because that shows his ult, which shows the
okay.
form. And then
Uh,
yeah, we don't have time for Yaimiko, so that'll be another time. But
okay.
let me but let me. I don't think we have time for the whole thing.
Let's roll!
Love his gameplay though. It's awesome.
Don't let him run away! Kujo-sara is coming!
Run away? No can do. Time to show you what it is that makes my gang stick around! Who wants some of this?
Wait. It's right. So he doesn't turn into it, but it just at least the detail is shown somehow.
Yeah,
Is that how is that?
it looks pretty cool. I won't say it's Shuten-doji because again, while he is predominantly a red Oni, he does have multicolored limbs.
Okay. Which I guess is relates to his Itto's normal form. Uh,
A bit of a stretch, but maybe.
Also, what about his element being Earth? Does that make any sense?
Um, I think it does, mainly because Oni are associated with the mountains.
Hmm.
It makes perfect sense to me. But I mean, the other thing is that Oni are associated with a lot of the forces of nature, especially in the context of natural disasters.
And
Um,
earthquakes are a very big thing in Japan, so that would make sense.
yeah, though I wouldn't necessarily say earthquakes are caused by Oni. I'm just saying that Oni are heavily associated with the earth.
Hmm. Okay, so this checks out.
Yeah.
Well, that's our well. We started actually like 2 hours, 2 minutes in, but yeah, that's our hour. I mean,
Yep.
I think I'd give Miko justice, and I think there's a lot of stuff we could talk about Kitsune. It's just so we'll give that another time. But
Yeah, but
I feel
thanks
like
for having.
the most folklore. I picked this because I think the most substantive folklore we get about a yokai is through Itto, so that's why I picked him. He's not necessarily
Yeah,
my favorite, but there's a lot. So what do you think? So yeah.
I think Arataki Itto is an interesting adaptation of Oni folklore in pop culture. Uh, I apologize if I sounded a little bit unsure when analyzing him. I mean, I'm no Lafcadio Hearn, but um, I try to comment where I can.
Mhm.
If you want any resources from professionals, I highly recommend you check out Japanese Demon Lore, Oni from Ancient Times to the Present. It is written by Noriko T. Raider, and it is public access on JSTOR.
Yeah.
I would also recommend checking out an article on Nippon.com called Oni and Outsiders in Japanese Cultural History, written by Professor Koyama Satoko
Mhm.
at Nisho Gakusha University.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, how would you? I mean, did anything seem unique coming out of a Chinese game, or do you think any that a Japanese form of media would do this as well, or do you think that there's anything unique that's coming from China?
I can't really comment on that because my exposure to Chinese video games is very limited. Like the only other game that I know, well, the only other games that I know are Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero.
So
And I mean, again, I
all,
mostly know those.
all Hoyo. So all the Hoyo games.
Yeah, so I mostly know this stuff through pop culture osmosis. I would be,
Yeah.
I feel I would be better equipped to speak on the representation of certain yokai in, Japanese media.
I guess does it? But is this unique at least compared to those, or is there any? Or does this line up with some of those?
I feel like it takes a bit of inspiration from more recent depictions of Oni in popular culture, mostly making them look like humans but with horns. That's something that I feel like I've seen as early as like Fire Emblem Fates, and then I've also seen like the adaptation of Shuten-doji and Ibaraki-doji in what was it? Fate Stay Night.
Mm.
Was it Fate Grand Order? I will say that I appreciate that Arataki Itto and the design of the Oni in general leans more into the masculine as opposed to the feminine, mainly because traditionally speaking, Oni are made out to be these like hyper masculine ogre-like creatures. So there's that. And of course there are female Oni, however, they go under the names of either Kijo or Hanya.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words for us?
Well, thanks for having me on here, and I hope to do this again sometime. Um, and well, if you are at all interested seeing seeing my own take on the Oni, I do have some stuff coming out later this year. I don't quite want to reveal it just yet, but um, I'm sure it'll be a real treat.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. All right. This has been David Lee's with Philosophical Video Game Philosophy. Peace.
Later.